House Intelligence Chairman Adam Schiff did not immediately jump on board when Democrats called for an impeachment inquiry. Now he is leading the investigation. So what is his game plan? That is the subject of a New York Times Magazine article, which gives an inside look into the chairman's strategy for the hearings. The author of that article, Jason Zelensky, joins me now. He is a contributor for New York Times Magazine and a correspondent for GQ Magazine. Thank you so much for joining us, Jason. This was really fascinating to read your piece. How has Chairman Schiff approached this investigation?
He was a prosecutor before he became a politician. He worked in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles, and I think he's taken that kind of approach. He's trying to build a case, and I think what we've had going on for the past month with these depositions behind closed doors, that was almost like the grand jury part of this process. And now he's finished with that part, and he's going to bring it out into the open, actually, sort of like in an open courtroom. And he's going to have these witnesses who came before the Intelligence Committee behind closed doors. He's going to have some of them come out and open. And I think he expects them to tell the public what they've already told the committee.
And how confident are Democrats in Schiff's plan?
I think they're very confident in him. He has the confidence of Nancy Pelosi. He's been a very close ally of hers since he arrived in Congress back in 2001. And he is someone that I think she really believes has not only the work ethic and the intelligence, but also the public-facing persona. He's very even-keeled. He's very sober. I think she very much wants this to be presented as a very sort of dignified and almost somber affair. When I was talking to her for this story, she said, there's no joy, no glee. And I think no one associates the words joy or glee with Adam Schiff. So I think in that respect, he's a very good public face for this.
Yeah, well, initially, Schiff was reluctant to get on the impeachment bandwagon. Why?
Well, I think that he believed that the president had likely committed impeachable offenses, but he was concerned that the president would be acquitted by the Senate. Were he to be impeached by the House, it would go to the Senate, and the Republican Senate would acquit him. And he was worried that that would set a precedent for future presidents that they could get away with these things. And he really felt that way until the Ukraine scandal came to light. And the thing that he really seized upon was the timing of one facet of the Ukraine scandal. It was President Trump's conversation with Ukrainian President Zelensky, which occurred on July 25th, which was one day after Bob Mueller had given his testimony in Congress. And Schiff believed that that wasn't coincidental, that Trump had seen Mueller's testimony, which, if you remember, was a bit of a dud, and his takeaway from it was that he could get away with this, and that's why you had that phone call on the 25th. And Schiff believes that that's a grave enough problem that it does merit impeachment, even though I don't think he has any real expectation that the president would be convicted in the Senate.
Well, and you talk about this in the piece. During the special counsel's investigation, Robert Mueller refused to respond to the president's criticisms, but Chairman Schiff has not hesitated to reply to the president's comments. How has that shaped the public perception of the impeachment inquiry?
Well, Schiff is a politician. He's not a prosecutor, and he's also not restrained by Department of Justice rules or guidelines like Mueller was. So he's allowed to fight back, and he's allowed to resist the president's efforts to define him and to define the probe. And I think that's one of the reasons you've seen this matter gain more traction with the public. I mean, partly it's a more understandable story. The Ukraine story is much more easily graspable than the Russian interference in the 2016 election. I was talking to one Intelligence Committee staffer, and he was comparing the Russia investigation to a Tolstoy story, where the Ukraine matter is more like an episode of The Sopranos. Right. So I think people can understand it, but I also think that Schiff has been able to control the narrative in a way that Mueller never did. Mueller just kept quiet, and Schiff has not done that. He's fought back against the president. He's fired back. He's released information at certain points, and I think that's allowed Democrats to keep the White House kind of on their back foot in a way that the White House is always on the offensive with Mueller, and that's not been the case this time around.
Right. We have seen Chairman Schiff, for instance, on the cable shows time and time again, arguing the Democrats' case. Well, you spoke to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, as you mentioned, who told you not to worry who actually drafts the articles of impeachment. Should it be Chairman Schiff? That's
an excellent question. I think that it'll be a consultation between, I think Pelosi will make the decision. I think probably Chairman Nadler, Judiciary Committee, will ultimately end up drafting them, but it will be in consultation with Pelosi and to a certain extent Schiff as well. I think the real question is going to be, what would the articles of impeachment be about? Will they be just about Ukraine? Will they be about obstruction of the Mueller probe? Will they be about emoluments? There are some Democrats who really favor a very broad approach to impeachment. There are others who I think, like Pelosi and Schiff, who would like it to be much more narrowly focused on Ukraine. And the caucus is going to fight that battle, and Pelosi will ultimately make the decision.
All right, Jason Zelensky is a really interesting window into this person that we will no doubt be seeing a lot more of here in the days ahead. Jason, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.